but today it's also about hats and wearing different hats. I only have one here.
Bernd, if I may ask a very personal question, what's with the hat?
I love the hat, Burnt. I think you're channeling your inner Indiana Jones.
And it's interesting because you made me think about all the hats that I wear, and I didn't realize that I have worn all these different hats in different periods of my life. So yeah, I've been in the learning space for all my life, I would say, from one end to the other. But if I were to say the learning enabler space, using your words, I've been a teacher for about 12 years now. And as my career and my life has evolved, I've moved from teaching to training to facilitating and coach. So it's just been a very interesting journey.
Can you guess? Can you guess why can you need used hospital X-rays?
Maybe artwork?
Artwork, yes.
I think I've seen them or similar pictures used in interculturalist world to show that we're all the same on the inside. So it's like,
That's a
Okay,
good one.
good. Yeah.
It's designing for French audiences as an expat, coming with with a more American mentality. It's a little bit different, and that took a while to figure out. That they're very different audiences with very different elements that they like and how they like to be approached and what they want to happen. And so the vast majority of our French audiences come in are more reserved. And it takes a little more of our facilitation to engage them. But because we know that, we design for that facilitation.
If I can say, I don't like to call myself an expert. I have issues with the term. Is something very personal. I think it gives some kind of privilege that I don't want to invest on myself.
Yeah.
So I call myself an immigrant. I prefer to be called an immigrant. I think it creates this idea of first class, second class.
Yeah.
Citizens, immigrants, and I really don't like the term, but I guess I'm in that category too.
Yes, the in-between is where I still feel as a foreigner. I actually love the term foreigner, and I'm trying to use that a lot.
I smile whenever possible. And that's what that's my talent, I think. I live in a tiny village, and I decided when I moved here from Chicago that I would smile and say buongiorno to everybody I meet on the street. And by now, everybody smiles back and says buongiorno to me. And we're happy to see each other, and it makes a nice community of smiles.
Could you think of a hand gesture, something nonverbal that would represent your role as a learning professional? Okay, Jamil, you kicked this off. Wow. Can you say something about it?
Well, I believe it's like expanding, expanding your conscience with the other people conscience, and about creativity. I mean, I think this says everything, you're mixing your energy with the rest of the universe.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a volcano, right?
Yeah.
She's coming out.
Exactly.
Eruption.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's about energy, and it's about, something going up and coming out. How about Alex? Do you have a gesture?
Yeah, I would share. Well, I have two even, right? One is love and peace that really kind of stuck to me in a good way in the recent few years, I guess for apparent reasons of lack of love and peace in my universe. So that's what is always important for me about what I teach, right? And my education, I take people to nature. So it's kind of travel and nature education. And second one is this one. We often use it in online events for the audience to respond if something kind of speaks to them. And I just understand that this is really a sign of excitement and I guess some deeper connection. So that's always when I'm getting excited about something, I'm always
Imagine you are a Stiliaga. Stiliaga, it's the word that comes from the word style. You are a Stiliaga in Soviet Union in 60s. What do you want most of all? It's the second question. What do you want?
Freedom.
Yeah, freedom.
Okay, you cannot have it. What else can you want?
Peace.
You cannot have it. Near your neighbors, no one cannot have peace. What can you want? But yes, Stiliaga, you want to look good, but
Sunglasses.
you want to have sunglasses. What else would you want?
Blue jeans.
For sure.
So my interest came from late diagnosis. And when I was given my assessment, I learned so much about myself and about dyslexia that really showed me that I thought that I had a relatively broad, normal understanding of dyslexia. And it told me that almost everything I knew was wrong. And that most of what most people talked about with dyslexia was wrong.
We tend to see things in binary frameworks. So escaping this binary approach to everything, be it intercultural knowledge or knowledge in general, is not something easy. So since many of our knowledge systems are based on binaries and contradictions, so it is either true or false, right or wrong, evil or good, moral or immoral, in-group or out-group, objective or subjective, and the list of binary oppositions can go on and on. And this makes generalizations today easier.
And one of the things I'm interested in is how we categorize our definitions. And I generally categorize them into four columns, if you like. One column is what I call type. One column is what I call origin. One column is what I call effect. And one column is what I call value. Now, very quickly, what I mean by that is type. It'll be something like neurological, or some people use words like constitutional, or some people will say genetic, or some people will say biological, or some people will say psychological. Origin, you'll get words like it's hereditary, it's developmental, it's innate, it's inherent, it's acquired. So, how you get it, how you come to get it, in other words. Effect, depending on who you listen to, it'll be reading and writing or literacy. It'll be something called phonology, phonological markers, or it'll be called about processing of information, that kind of thing. And then there's the value. And this is really interesting. The value is, and I see it here, and please don't feel that anybody who wrote this, there's absolutely no accusation at all. There never is, because we all do it. You get words like weakness, deficit, problems, challenges, difficulties. Disorder.
It's very comforting to see things as you and I, either or, but the challenge is to dig deeper and to be able to see this gray zone and gray area. And, this is the beauty of the in-betweenness, which is not something that is easy to see and to grasp, but it is very important for us.
And in between is a kind of nice coincidence, because a couple of sessions ago, we had here Monica Mate. Monica is Rick, you probably know her from the WXO. She is an experience designer in Copenhagen.
And I think there is this space where you are not from here, but you're also not from your original culture anymore. And it's this weird place like where you're drifting. So that would be the in-between for me.
I have a comment on this. It may be helpful, maybe not. You tell me. But when we talk about context, I mean, we have moved from Hofstadter's culture is the software of the mind to what now Gwen has told us about culture is the context function of the mind, okay? Now, when we think about context, we say, okay, I'm going to have a meeting with you, Bernd, about topic X, okay? So I know you relatively well. I can be informal and so on and so forth. So no, okay? But I look at the interpersonal nature of the context, which is important. But where we meet, how long we meet, what's in the room with us, what neighborhoods we come from. All of these issues are in the new. Actually, I'm planning another, every day I'm playing a new diversity game, and the one I'm looking at right now is going to be about how do we weave the social fabric in which we live.
Because there's this kind of liminal space between maybe irritation, frustration sometimes, and recognition and learning, where it can be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's also the first step to change and transformation.
You want to listen Western jazz, you want to listen to rock and roll, yeah, or some kind of rebel music, which was forbidden also, like gypsy romances or criminal tunes. They were super popular, like the soul songs, but you cannot have it. So what you do? You use X-rays to put the music on it.
I'm willing to go.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, Lisbeth.
This?
Okay.
Because I usually work one-on-one with my clients, and I feel like a lot of the programs that I do, there's a lot of conversation, and I really invite people to share their experiences, their perspectives, and I learn from that every time as well. So it's like really connecting with my clients.
Yeah.
Reminded me of one of the sections of your book, actually, Bernd. One of the sections of your book is entitled Empathizing with the Learner. And this is a beautiful book that I've been considering as well in my services. But I'll just read one of the excerpts that Anna touched on. Empathy is not an enigmatic gift that allows some people to intercept the whispered secrets of another person's heart. Empathy is a skill, and it can be learned by every human being. A skill that enables people to understand the other person's needs before, during, and after the learning process.
But I also know that you are a coach and a certified coach. So in what way is that different?
Well, it's if I use it in a pure sense, and Lisbeth can join me in this conversations, because we're both Erickson certified coaches, and we learn to really partner with our client to help them reach their potential, really, and we're there to partner and co-create with them, and that's what as it's actually very difficult for me because all the roles that I've had before has always been being in the thick of it and actually helping and guiding and sharing. Whereas when you're a coach, you really do have to take that step back. And which is why I started the gesture by holding the space and just meeting them where they are. And as Carolyn was saying, in a sense, we're almost in a sense getting out of the way and helping them to take responsibility and their decisions, giving them the autonomy, giving them the power to do things.
Abby, let's try to put a few names on what Anastasia just described. There is and I don't speak any Indian language, but yes, thank you for the link, Anastasia. But there is a word I learned not long ago, which is, I probably mispronounce it completely, which is jugad. And so what's the meaning of this word and what is the concept?
So that was actually a really wonderful example of Jugaad. And I think with your permission, I says, yeah, I'll definitely use it again. I'll study it, but it explains all the principles of Jugaad. So Jugaad in India, it's a very it's a cultural term. It's multi-purpose. So like it's about finding a hack. It's like the MacGyver way of finding solutions, of transforming something wasted into a resource. What we just saw in this beautiful example, transforming something wasteful. And so Jugaad is also about like it's a it's a very it's a word with many meanings. So even for corruption, it can be used. Like find me a hack, a social hack, political hack, but it's more about ingenuity. Yeah, if there was a translation, it would be ingenuity.
Now, I would like to kick it off with a word that probably everybody has an idea about. And it's the word immersion.
I was actually approached by a company, a learning development company, to make something. They wanted something immersive, so that was kind of the buzzword for them. Again, neither the learning and development company nor the insurance company, who were the client, quite knew what they meant by that, but it was something that they had some kind of sense of.
The definition I use in my book is from Paul Zak. Paul Zak calls himself a neuroeconomist. Immersion is a neurological state in which one is attentive to an experience and it resonates emotionally.
At the weekend, I go down the road where I live in Southwest London and go to a local rugby club. The thing I want to share with you is that it's something that I realized doing this thing outside of my work, where I use my head a lot. And I like to think that I'm intellectual. And rugby, especially for kids, is not that particularly. Learning there is collective. It's about connecting with people. It's about listening. It's physical and it's emotional. And so that's my gift for you. Those are some words to describe learning, not intellectual, collective, physical, and emotional. And that's what I get from this particular thing that I do outside of my work.
It's interesting when you shared your gesture. I had quite the opposite idea of doing like this, something, or maybe even to the point, pointing to something. Because when I do programs, I think like there is vast amount of information that we can share, but we bring it into something, and like we come to a point and people get to understand something. So we make some conclusions. So to me, it would, and also make connections. Well, for me, it would not be quite this, but for some reason, more like.
I believe you're more focused than me. I'm more dispersed.
That was a pretty loose brief. We want it to be immersive. We want it to be theatrical, exciting. We want people to be surprised and it be unexpected. But of course, nevertheless, for me, I still had to start with, okay, well, what is the content here? What's the content? So it's leadership training. So what are our learning outcomes? Who are these people that are coming? What are they going to be bringing with them? What do you want to achieve what does the company, the client, what do they want to achieve? What kind of change do they want to bring about? What kind of ideas do they want in the room? What do they want people bringing back to the office?
Maybe take a piece of paper somewhere and write down as many ideas as you can. I'm going to show you an object in a second, which has a purpose. We have too many of these objects around. They are waste. And if I quote you correctly, turning something wasteful into a resource. So can you think of as many repurposed not recycled, but repurposed, reused, repurposed applications you can think of. And what I'm going to show you is, without the advertising, it's a plastic bottle.
Yeah. Sorry, Cindy. Yeah.
You're talking about 20% of students, let's say, perhaps learn in a different way.
Yeah.
Than the other 80%.
Roughly, yeah.
Greta Thunberg says that she's neurodiverse.
Mm-hmm.
She's the climate activist.
Yeah.
And she calls it her superpower.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about all of the deficits and the problems and the tragedies of dyslexia, I wonder if there are not enormous gifts hidden in it.
Here we go. 6-word memoirs. So, for example, I came, saw, lost, and rebounded. 6 words. The commas don't count. A quest for health, wealth, and happiness. I wanted to be like Elvis. Shabina, would you like to read yours?
Sure. Playfully curious designer of life experiences. I actually wanted 5 just without the experiences, but I was trying to hit your 6. Yeah.
I want to show you a lot of pictures from the journey for what it looks like.
So for those of you who are a little bit less familiar with the format, if I understand correctly, it's an experience with you and Adele performing as actors, right? With the participants who then become more than just an audience. They have to interact with you and with each other, I suppose. So it's immersive theater, basically.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out, because I tend to forget that this is not the typical thing. So let me roll back. Yes, it is an immersive experience, and by that we mean that, it's not a workshop, it's not just an event, and you don't go there to listen to someone give a talk or do some sort of exercises with post-its or simple discussions. We take a step further and we invite people into a different world that has different rules than the outside world, and we invite them to play and engage with the invitations that we give them.
I see immersive theater, of course, immersive for me is you put the participant at the heart of everything you do. Multisensory, engaging to the participants with a level of emotional connection, and allowing a space for the participants to also be vulnerable and allow themselves to shine and find themselves in the experience.
So what they wanted, there's a couple of things they wanted. So obviously there's a HR department sponsored event that that's their budget. One of the things they wanted was they wanted their leaders, the people with people management responsibilities, to, when presented with a complex situation, or even not a complex situation, with someone they're line managing, to stop asking the question, to stop calling HR and saying, what's the rule? And to start looking at the person and being a human being and trying to be in the problem and try and essentially, try and lead, but try to be present with the person and figure it out, have be willing to enter into the conversation, to take the risk.
So definitely build a safe space, facilitate, be prepared for whatever comes out of it, and then debrief. And in a lot of cases, we debrief. Vast majority of our experiences, we debrief when we can.
Yeah. Speaking of sensitive topics, also, I mean, for me, one of the origins of immersive theater is probably what Augusto Boal did in Brazil in the 1970s with the Theater of the Oppressed, Forum Theater, which is still around. right? So a form of theater where you play out, you act out, yeah,
Absolutely. That's a great example. The Theater of the Press is an excellent example.
Yeah.
And that was a big learning. And again, it was very much, okay, how are people going to land and how can we support them when they land? What kind of parachutes, what kind of tools can we give them throughout and after so they can also unpack everything they just lived and be able to learn from what they went through. But some of them were really challenging.
Now, regarding the question of whether it's a superpower, this is a hot topic. My personal take on it is that there is a lot of research, and I can share tons of it with you if you like. And in fact, Bernd, if you don't mind, I'd like to just share a quick website with people so they can see some of it. So there's tons of research, and some of it appears on my Dyslexia Bytes site. So please have a quick look at it, which is here. That shows that dyslexics, and I can show similar things for autistic and ADHD. It shows that dyslexics they always or almost always rank extremely high on certain tests, such as creativity tests, interpersonal problem solving, visual acuity. Can they see dyslexics weirdly can make out blurred images better than non-dyslexics can. They can see peripheral images better than non-dyslexics can. They can find things better than non-dyslexics can. They can see anomalies. They can manipulate things better in their mind's eye, as it were, better than non-dyslexic people can.
And it's also I find this session really fascinating because I mean, as many of you know, I come from the intercultural field, so and went into this experience design space, and you come from the experience design space, right? And the intercultural element is more a personal story, and that's really
100%. And I love that every time you and I talk, you always give me like scientific terms, research-based terms for what I'm trying to define through my own lived experience.
Yeah. I had almost a bit of a joke earlier on with somebody I wanted to convince to come to the session, but this person is not available, unfortunately. And we have this term, Veronica, you know this, B, you probably know this as well, of marginality, right? I think it was Annette Bennett who created this and encapsulated marginality and then constructive marginality. And Monica speaks of the magic in between.
It's a way more poetic term than
which term do you feel better with? Travel is like an endless university. You never stop learning. So Harvey Lloyd is a photographer who also made the photo we can see on the slide.
I think the biggest problem here, I think, is how natural are the ingredients of this experience. Because of course everybody is learning, but it doesn't mean that what they learn is, you know, a good thing. And me living on the kind of backyard of the all-inclusive, not a resort, but, you know, entire region, I see very well how these decorations are built in real life for people to experience something that is fake.
Mm-hmm.
So people come here and they're like, hey, oh, this is Mexico. So it means what? Tequila, I don't know, cocaine, mariachi, you know, like, and things like that. Well, it has nothing to do with this place. I mean, I'm in Yucatan. This is Maya land. This is totally different culture in this sense. And to wrap up my already long talk, in all my conclusions, talking about travelers and tourists, I would conclude that travelers nowadays are those who care about the place. And this usually, to me, like the fundamental thing is basically nature of the place, like literally wildlife. How much does it left because it really suffers? And indigenous cultures, not even locals, because what means locals? I have 300,000 people right now in Playa del Carmen. It used to be 20,000, like 20 years ago. So they are all locals. I'm local right now, but I'm not, right? So indigenous cultures and nature, those are things that actually give travel the deepest meaning I found so far from the place perspective.
I'd just like to mention the start of a beautiful movie by Bernardo Bertolucci, The Sheltering Sky. In Italian is Il Tè nel Deserto, where John Malkovich and Deborah Winger, they talk about the distinction at the beginning of the movie between a traveler, who is something that goes to a place and just looks forward to discover what's there, while the tourist is someone who, as soon as he gets to a place, is thinking of when he will go back to his place.
So it's set in the 1930s or something?
Yeah, it's set in the London docks in the late 30s.
Oh, right.
And the idea was that we would take it to pre-tech into a manual world. So not the city insurance company with an office on the 34th floor of the Scalpel building, but to take it somewhere really quite different and somewhere vivid, in which which would take them out of their worlds essentially. So there's something about that kind of initial imaginative leap of entering into a different world, and I think one of the things that achieved the kind of if you like, the kind of immersion in a space. With characters who were from a world of the 1930s and a space that was clearly existed in the 1930s, and a kind of sound design which made it feel like an operating, working space. I think it just helped the audience to step out of their roles. It's not that we didn't ask them to step into a role, but it just helped them to step out of their roles as, John from accounts. It was much easier to just be John, who is finding this very interesting, instead of being John from accounts.
I personally think that you learn what you want to learn. This is connected to the open-mindedness, to the will of learning, to the sense of wonder, and especially, and I go this way into the core of the geomyutical journeys that we organize, is leaving the place. I will be using two Latin expressions to mean what is the leitmotif of this geomyutical journey. Hic et nunc, here and now, it's really fundamental when we organize this kind of journeys. What we try to tell people is that they need to be there in that very moment. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. Because if you are thinking about your problems or about some other places you have seen, you make comparisons, this really takes a lot out of the meaning of your trip.
A plastic bottle. So let's take 3 or 4 minutes. Think of as many possibilities as you can.
I had a cardboard, metal can, paper, and maybe wood furniture.
Yeah, very good.
And this one is particularly for me, a cockroach catcher.
So I worked on a fun little project called The Haunted Hound. So in the escape room venue, we had a bar space, which was used as the lobby for people waiting to go into an escape room and people who have just left. And for the most part, this space was just dead weight, and people weren't staying very long. They weren't spending anything on the drinks that we had to offer. So we decided, why don't we bring some of the escape room elements out into the bar? But we didn't have a budget. It was just an idea that I had that wasn't proven. We've not seen it anywhere else. And we didn't want to sacrifice any of the operating cost either. So this needed to be a game that runs itself. It doesn't need any maintenance, and the technology couldn't be advanced. and the puzzles needed to reset themselves somehow. And the Haunted Hound is what I came up with.
People basically squashing those bottles and using them as sandals. Have you seen that, Abby? Or I even saw a boat made of plastic bottles, right? And it floats. Yeah, and things like that. So excellent stuff.
So,
Abby,
yeah,
yeah.
I wanted to share, like, it's funny that you gave this exercise because I've been doing this since the last 7 years in my workshops, and I probably have done over 50 of these workshops where I ask them to bring bottles and all the waste that they have. So, like in the last 3 years, actually, I've stopped doing it with plastic bottles because more and more people don't have them. And I tell them you have, and I take like scissors, ropes, threads, and rubber bands, and I tell them you have 10 minutes to save the world, and I put them in pairs, and then I keep announcing the time like every minute to build the pressure, and then and it's pretty amazing, everything, all the ideas that people can come up with, and like I even had in one of the sessions where someone made like a hearing aid with two bottles. Um, and the example that Diana shared is actually like called the litter of light from Philippines, where they put bleach and some salt so that moss doesn't grow in, and it uses the sunlight as refraction so that during the day, households that don't have electricity can be lighted.
Is one, don't promise El Dorado. So a lot of times we try and create experiences that are quite grand and, have magical results. But if we kind of strip down those expectations and just say, hey, there's a weird mystery going on in the bar, and it would be great if you guys could help us solve it. Like, this isn't Disneyland that you're stepping into. This is just a bar space, and it would be cool if you could figure out what's going on. Number two is put all of your eggs in one basket, as opposed to, the classic phrase of not putting all of your eggs in one basket. In the bottom right here is a ghost hunting game, and one of the key devices that we used was an EMF reader. And that EMF reader was used to find ghosts around the room. And one of the questions in the development of it was, how many puzzles should we have? How many devices? But instead, we put all of our technological budget into that one EMF device and then made it multi-use. And that kind of brought the quality of the game up so high, where people saw everything else as very high budget because that one device was so well done. Number three is create a sandbox. So create a space that people can play within. So sometimes you don't need to have a structured narrative, structured spaces, and people flow from this thing to another, and then you have to figure out how the UX of that might work. Sometimes you can just give people resources and a confined space and then let them play within it. And number four is the most crucial, is just work with what you've got. I think that's really, really important.
But with the storytelling, theatre, and improvisation workshops that I run, it's all the resources, the people. The people are the resource.
Yeah.
And that's sustainable.
Yes, I wrote it down because I wasn't sure if we have time actually. Just like, how do you usually start the process? Do you usually, I know that both scenarios are okay, I guess, but do you usually start with the idea and then try to find what resources do you have? Or do you see the resources you have and then build ideas off of that?
That's a great question. Probably we can put that question to Sandesh.
So I first start with the goal. So what is the purpose for this project? What do we hope to gain from it? And then I look at what resources we have, and then how do we accomplish that goal within those constraints.
And Abby, how would a Jugad practitioner answer that question?
So a bit like Sandesh, but like I would rather start with the available resources and constraints, because sometimes when you fix the goal too soon, you miss out on the available resources because it filters out some of the resources. But yeah, it's basically based on what you have, and you just yes and the story develops. Like it's not you just go with it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a natural flow.
It emerges.
Hmm.
I find myself collecting things sometimes before I even start the idea. Like I leave, for example, some leftover waxes, some beets, leftover colors from beets, and like other vegetables, and I might just use it and collected like dead plants, for example, dead like leaves of a plant. I collect things on the corner and then I come up with a project. And this is usually not like, collaborative projects, but it can be. Yeah. I also was raised in a culture that reuses everything. And I mean everything.
Absolutely. That was the idea for the activity. We won't have really time to go into this, but I share it with you anyway. Otherwise, you go away with FOMO. And you could do this on your own later on. But the idea for the activity was to take just one object. It could be one of these, or to pick an object in your room. It could be Aliona's object. What's it called again? The cookie.
It's very specific. It's Oreo, the brown cookie, like that sandwich one, because it has that cream inside. Oreo cookie dipping tool to dip it into milk.
So if you learned any terminology today, it's ovial cookie dipping tool.
How do we rhyme the fact that we are both certified coaches who have learned through our coaching to like step out of the way, but at the same time, I'm also a trainer, a consultant. Clients have a certain fixed amount of hours that are supposed, I mean, in my case, the people that I work with, that need to prepare them to be a manager, a leader in their new country. So I am always wondering, like, I try to hang on to what I've learned in my coach training, but at the same time, it's like we only have 8 hours, and I do have some expertise that I need to share with them. If I don't share it with them in these 8 hours, these people are just not prepared.
And we could do this in breakouts, but maybe we could just do it here together. I hope you can all see this. And basically, I use two dimensions here to distinguish between different roles as learning enablers, like coaches or facilitators or trainers. One is the degree of personalization. So not very personalized, so everybody gets the same, or highly personalized, so every person gets something different. And on the other hand, you have script or no script. So heavily scripted could be, I don't know, a lecture that you have basically formulated and you just read it, or you just give it. And then no script is basically a bit like improvisation. So if we start with coaching, where would you put coach?
I would say very personalized.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say not scripted at all, because like Elsie and I, like at Ericsson, there's kind of like there is some kind of like a process or a framework that you want to, I mean, that allows you to have outcomes for your client. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the basic principles of what is known as universal design, right? Which came as a thing first, right? So for things like designing facilities, designing buildings, and so on. And then it was adapted to learning. And it's known as UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. Maybe you want to say a few words about this, Martin. You probably know it better than I do.
I work with UDL, and there's a couple of things. Very, very quickly. First of all, it is a wonderful tool for teachers. One of the things that it or for educators, one of the things that it forces you to do is to try to, as it were, step into the shoes of the people you're designing for. So UDL, it usually comes in three. There you go. I mean, here we've got engagement, representation, and action expression. These are really good ways of looking at it. And one of the things that it allows you to do is to try to think, okay, how will people access what I'm designing? How will they come into contact with what I'm designing? And how easy is it for them to use? So if you're using UDL to design a car, you would never have all those different gears and pedals, and it's ridiculous to do that. So, this is one of the reasons that somebody with dyspraxia, I can't drive a car, and I don't know my left from my right to begin with. But yeah, so what it does, it allows you to empathize, or it rather forces you to empathize with people. This is really useful, by the way. There were some studies about the effect of neurodivergent people, that is autistic, dyslexic, ADHD people, in teams. Now, not only do teams' performances generally go up when there is an acceptance of neurodiversity within the teams, but it turns out there's one or two studies where managers have actually reported that they have become better managers. And one of the reasons they believe they've become better managers is they've had to think in UDL terms. They've had to rethink the way that they interact with people, the way they communicate with people.
Let's maybe not do all of them, but I think some of the people who are here are learning experience designers, right? So, or am I the only one? I don't think so. So what is learning experience design here? Very often connected with facilitation, because you need to design before you facilitate. And not all learning experience designers actually see the learners. Sometimes they only design the experience and then somebody else facilitates it. But where does this come in terms of script? How much script does a learning experience designer have?
I think, to be honest, a learning experience designer aims for as much as personalization or human factors.
Yeah.
And the script will follow the process. So the iterative way of refreshing or redesigning is a big part of learning experience design.
Exactly.
So the script is not at the top, but it's halfway, I think.
Yeah, somewhere here.
Yeah.
When we hit our beats, so we're gonna, let's already go with what is going to be kind of empirical. When we hit our beats on the right time, we're in time, and we can guide the audience into what feels like a really great. The energy is working, everyone's getting it, we're moving forward, we're getting good feedback, and we're moving everything along as we should. And then the less empirical, which is more intuitive, it just feels right. Again, there's even in proscenium theater, you're going to get on stage, and sometimes those audiences are great, and they're going to give back, and sometimes they're not. I mean, as a burlesque performer, as a cabaret performer, I've been on stages where you can hear a pin drop, which when it comes to burlesque is really challenging because a lot of it is call and response. So it's going to be similar. Sometimes you're going to get participants that are going to be ready to go, and you're going to play with them, and sometimes not. And so for me, it's when it all kind of just gels together. It feels good. We've accomplished everything. We've hit our timing. We've said the main pieces, and everybody's left feeling as we had intended, with whatever the output we wanted them to feel, that they leave like that.